Hello and welcome to a very special edition of our year-end Changer Chat. We are joined today by co-founders of Be the Change Volunteer, Jimmy and Cristi Cook, and of course, our Director of Change, Grant Venable. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining us today.
Thanks for
Thank you.
And you'll notice we're all in matching Changer gear. You can get your own Changer gear, I think, on the website. We are excited about this call. We're going to talk a little bit about the year that has been and about the years that will come. But I was talking in our pre-talk a little bit, and Jimmy and Cristi, can you have imagined 5 years ago or 10 years ago that you'd be sitting here talking about Be the Change Volunteers and such a successful organization that has made so much impact?
No, definitely not. I mean, honestly, not even sure that we would have a director of change or someone doing changer chats, just getting the message out to the public and getting new changers involved. But yeah, it really is all about the team. I mean, we would be here nowhere close to this without everybody that just engage and gives their time, talent, treasures to something they believe in.
Yeah, it's a blessing that you guys have done to the world with all the work you've done for education. And we all really appreciate it. So 2021 was supposed to be the year of things went back to normal, and they really didn't. Talk about how that's affected the mission of Be the Change Volunteers.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because in some ways, 2021 was worse than 2020. Just because we were just dealing with all the aftermath. So yeah, not only that, we were hoping it'd be pretty normal, but then things like supply chain and prices of construction materials and logistics, even communication logistics, sometimes got harder. And so I would say it was super bittersweet. I mean, the bitter part was we love to be on builds. It was much more difficult to get the projects done, on time and in budget, just so many more barriers. Not being able to take teams and just show them these amazing communities and all that. But I think the sweet part, and probably in some ways, probably the most important years we've had for our mission and for the future, is that we saw the communities take the full ownership that it really takes. I mean, that's the only way it's going to be sustainable long term, which is what we're about. And so to really, because it had to. So we could kind of sit back like the proud parent and just say, wow, they're all grown up.
Yeah.
And it was just really amazing to see that happen because they did it. And then certainly the support of donors, especially the ones that have been with us forever, and just give that monthly amount, or just said, I understand you don't have the financial wherewithal with the normal volunteer mechanism, so I'm going to give this much more this year. And it just honestly is giving me goosebumps right now, is just to think about, people just everywhere in the local communities, our donors and our team members and our volunteers just said, we'll find a way. This is crazy. This is a pandemic, but we're going to find a way because the mission is that important. And I think the other sweet part is it validated the mechanism. So all the things that we work so painstakingly on, the communication, the sustainability components of that, the local people being totally engaged, and the phased building process. I mean, that really came to fruition to make it all happen. So yeah, it's tough. I love to be in the communities, and I hate not, just taking people and showing them this beautiful thing, but at the same time, it's really validating.
Yeah, it has been fantastic. And you guys are really big on financial transparency. And you describe traveling volunteer teams as part of your economic engine of Be the Change Volunteers. Can you share about what that means?
Yeah, so we look at our funding mechanisms in a three-prong approach, kind of like interworking cogs in the machine. And we have our general gifts, which are used for any mission-related needs. So whether it's a pre-project or during a project or even sometimes post-project. And then the endowment, which is our sustainability fund, which we try to leave so that, it can grow. And eventually we can use some of those funds for things when we fall short. And then the third is the traveling teams. And when one of those isn't working, like this past year with the traveling teams, the other two have to kind of take over, and we have to have more in those two areas. So without the traveling teams, it was really difficult in 2021 or in 2020 and to some degree in 2021 because we weren't traveling as a full team. So this was the first year that we fell short and we were in the red until we had some big donors step up and give more. And now at the end of the fourth quarter, we're back on track. And so we're starting out 2022 in a good position.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was really impressed with your organization is your commitment to sustainability and having an endowment. A lot of nonprofits don't do that. And so when they get into a year like this, it's not just the red, it's out of business. And you guys have done a really nice job of managing that. Tell me a little bit about that sustainability belief structure that's within Be the Change Volunteers.
Yeah, for us, it was the start of it, to be honest with you, was we just had to practice what we preach.
Mm-hmm.
So, from day one, the mission was sustainable educational projects. And so if we're asking these communities to be sustainable, then we as an organization better be sustainable. And so it's been neat, again, to see that grow and people buy into it and give us good advice. And we've, just really been blessed, not only for people how to invest it, putting into that fund, but then just building it and growing it over time. And so that's one of our big, hairy, audacious goals. We want to get that, to about 4 million. That would be where we would, just from the profits from it, the distribution of it, we could fund. So our goal is to be able to fund all the ongoing expenses, and then have a rainy day fund within it as well too. So we could fund one whole project if everything went flat. And so we're working on that one. We're getting closer every year. And again, it's just a good thing to go after and to say, like, listen, we're doing that for the organization while we expect that from you as a community.
Mm-hmm. That's a great thing, to be a good steward of the gifts we're given. So without those volunteer teams being able to go and complete projects, how have you been able to do that with closed countries, Grant? How has that looked for you all?
Well, number one, it's really the saying that goes around a lot of nonprofits, it's no money, no mission. And we were just so fortunate to have, sustaining members continue to give. General donors give more than they typically would give. New donors step up, realizing what we were dealing with and going through as an organization that's basically in the travel business. And then legacy donors who are families that fund entire projects. So that finance end of it made it possible financially. The other side of that is the community partners. And so BTCV works with community partners, and those community partners work within the school systems to make our projects possible. That job is very difficult on the other side of the pond. I know from my desk, I tell people, like, well, how's it going? Well, when you're in the travel business, morale's in short supply right now. So to have people calling and encouraging you. But on the other side of the pond, it's much more difficult. And so I know that it's really because of the work of community partners in all the places that we are, that students were able to return to schools when they were allowed with special precautions in place. And that construction projects, infrastructure projects, major ones in some cases, were completed because our community partners continued to coordinate and get materials to site for the builders to work with. So really, it's the donors that made it possible, and our community partners. That's where all the credit really lies.
It's amazing. I think you think about the travel and all of that stuff that happens, and we've all dealt with here in this country, getting our kids into schools and learning the new normal for our kids. I can't even imagine it in another country. And what a blessing to have great community partners in those areas that are helping get the kids educated in the midst of a pandemic in such a difficult time. But you guys were able to take a trip this last year, and it was able to go international, and you had some learnings from that. Tell me a little bit about that trip. What was it like?
We did a few trips. So we had a team go to Puerto Rico early in the year, and then the summer team went to Rwanda, and then we sent 2 different groups to Peru. And I'll let the cooks talk about Peru, but I want to talk about Rwanda because that was number one, our community partner had to figure out what all I'll call the hoops of fire were that we had to jump through to make sure we were doing it right and being compliant. And I told people who traveled with us, you don't have to agree with everything. You just have to agree to comply. And so in Rwanda, you know, one of the things I learned was you needed travel declarations, not only for the country you were going to, but for every country you would pass through. Now, I learned that in line at the United Airlines counter. So I was filling out the Brussels airport travel declaration on my phone to get from point A to point B. Of course, when we arrived in Rwanda, we had a COVID test on site. It was really well organized, I'll say, in the airport. I was very impressed. So we got COVID tested on arrival. Then they gave us a list of approved hotels. So we went to one of those hotels for a 24-hour quarantine. And then we got the results by a text message that we were cleared to go. Our community partner also worked on making sure we had transit papers to get from point A to point B to point C, because in most of the places we work, the project is not where the airport is. The project is several hours in a more rural location. And so our project partner handled all of that coordination for us. The mask thing, you're masked 24/7. And I'll say that on the back of a motorcycle, it actually keeps the dust out of your teeth. So it's not totally a negative. All right. And then, of course, we're doing construction masks on site a lot. So I just, would encourage people not to worry too much about that. The exit COVID tests being done was a bit more difficult to figure out, and that took a little more time. What I feel good about now, after all of it, the biggest thing I take away is, number one, we've gone through it, our community partners gone through it, and we have a real understanding of how to take care of travelers with BTCV so that they're going to have a great experience and still hand deliver hope at these schools.
Yeah, I just have to point out 3 things about the community partners in this situation. Again, this is a pandemic, and this is the developing world. So, I mean, that's the first thing, to just put yourself in that perspective, and then to realize what they did, because a couple of things. One thing they had to do first was figure out how to communicate to us what's in the media and what's on, informational websites versus what's really happening on site. Mm-hmm. And that was key to us feeling safe to go, knowing how to go, take volunteers with us and be able to go. And just an incredible job to try and navigate that and communicate it to us super well. And the second thing was we had less people on the team. And so they had to, figure out how they were going to get more local workers, more community members doing more of the jobs, because we couldn't help as much, just pure numbers from that standpoint. And so again, that's a big, huge coordination effort all the time. And then I think the last part is on ground, just making you feel safe. I mean, even in a normal year, everything's changed. When you get into one of these communities, everything's different. And so to take on that part, like the cultural, geographical, access differences, and then add on your health safety component to it, I mean, it's just remarkable. And our community partners in Rwanda, Peru, Puerto Rico, I mean, just navigated that so well. The other thing I would say is that our volunteers, because again, I think really then they had to take all that information in and still be willing to do that. So I mean, the volunteers that went this last year, they should get, a new kind of t-shirt or some kind of special signifying mark. Like, not only did I go on a Be the Change bill, but I did it during a pandemic. Because it was different. I mean, I would just tell you it was different. Again, less people, tests. I mean, it seemed like we had 50 tests in Rwanda. I know it wasn't that many, but it seemed like it. And so that was the deal. And then again, just donors, because they realized mission. We just had one the other day, it just says it all to me. A 12-year-old kid gave us a check just the other day, and he saved $1 a day. So the check was for $365. A 12-year-old kid, he took that out of his allowance because he said, I just, I know it's a hard year for you. And so I just wanted to give what I could give, which is $1 a day. I said, man, I couldn't even, making me speechless is pretty hard to do, but I was at that point, because I was just like, man, this 12-year-old kid gets it. And we had so many people that just stepped up and did that, said, we'll find a way to get you the money, even though, a lot of us, it's a tough financial year for us in this country. And so to really give out of just the generosity of your heart and for others, I mean, it's just awesome. And I mean, it gives me more energy than I probably ever need, but it really is inspiring for sure.
Well, it's been a crazy year, and I have loved learning the mission and getting attached to Be the Change volunteers, because it aligns with my beliefs about education. And I know that so many people have shared that back with me, and they've listened to these chats and gone to your website and learned about it. And what a cool thing that kid did. I don't know if people know this, but on the website, you can go to the donate button and you can actually set it up to automatically give every single month. Give up a cup of coffee. You're spending $5 at Starbucks every day. We know you're doing it. So give up a cup of coffee once a week. You know, that's a lot of money that you could give to help education. And I will tell you, Be the Change makes it go a long way. So I want to know a little bit about your hopes and dreams for 2022. What does that look like in this new world that we're living in? And what do you want to see happen with Be the Change volunteers?
I'll just start and then let these guys sum it up. But to me, it's just those three things that we've hit on. I want to get traveling volunteers back on site, because it's just, it just makes a difference for everything. It's the heart of the mission. And it's just, to me, it's that perspective that we all need. It gives you that one world, shared journey, shared experience. We're not really that different. We're really not, if we just look at it. And that, I think, is what we need. And that, I think, can change the world in ways that we need so desperately right now. So that's a big thing for me, for sure. I hope the travel becomes easier as well. And then I really hope we can just continue to build that sustainability, both for ourselves as an organization, but on the projects, and just see that community partnership really take over and that ownership take over. So those are my big hopes for next year.
Yeah, for me, the Sustainability Fund has been a big project for us for years, and trying to get that built will be a big hope for this year. Getting back to the full teams, because it definitely does change the dynamics and of the team and the build when you have more of a full team versus a handful of people here and there. And then getting back to our chapter meetings, we have gone without chapter meetings, and having that camaraderie of our local HOMO chapter meeting, and seeing everyone and catching up and figuring out which projects everyone's going to go on, and where are you going this year? Oh, I can't go till next year, but I'm still gonna come to the meetings and have some Shakespeare pizza and talk, and that'll be really fun to get back to.
Yeah, for me, my biggest hope, of course, and I think everyone's like the end game here is that students are in school, right, getting better education. It's just that those students can get back into classrooms where their classrooms aren't opened, and regain what they've lost from this. And I think that's what we all want, because over these years, literally BTCV has invested hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, donor dollars, into infrastructure and equipment that needs to be put to use for kids. And so I'll be excited to see that happen. I'm hopeful for that to happen sooner than later. And then traveling teams, one of the things that I learned coming to BTCV was, the teams that I traveled on before BTCV, or the groups I traveled with, everybody kind of believed the same thing and had the same ideas and perspectives and viewpoints. With BTCV, it's not quite like that. With BTCV, you end up on a team with people who have different perspectives than you do. But what you find out as you're stretched by those people is that your perspectives begin to evolve, and unintentionally you become friends with those people. And that's probably the most special thing to me about BTCV outside of the core mission and education. And so my hope is that we can start to learn in that way again with our teams. So, yeah.
That's great. Wow. This has been a super special episode of the Changer Chat. We appreciate you all joining us. And I'm looking forward to 2022 to see what you guys are able to do. And I appreciate the legacy that you guys have done by doing this nonprofit and by allowing people to become partners with you in change, and not just going yourselves and building things, but allowing people to be partners with you. So we invite all of you to join us as we change the world for good through education. And thanks for listening today.
Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney.